Hello and Assalamualaikum. Today we are going to have our tidbit session with one of our healthtech companies here at MRANTI. We have Ms. Rajifah Ramli from TIDBITS. So I think for the purpose of our tidbits, basically we will have this sharing session on the entrepreneurship journey of Rajifah as the CEO and co-founder of TIDBITS, one of the local startups, basically empowering the use of blockchain in
Okay.
healthcare technologies. So I think to start, maybe Ms. Rajifah Ramli, can you tell a little bit about yourself and the background of your company?
Right. Thank you very much, first of all, to MRANTI and specifically to HealthTech Hub, Dr. Hazwan and team for having us today. Basically, well, my name is Rajifah, and before I embark on this entrepreneurship journey, I was with the corporate sector. So I was with telco company, I was with a technology company, and then also utilities company. So basically from there, that basically exposed myself to technology because these companies basically have some elements of technology in their operation. And then I decided to leave the corporate world because I found it like monotonous and it has become a bit boring for me. So I left the corporate world and then decided to start my journey in entrepreneurship. So that's how we got to set up Data 8. And before Data 8 was born, we were actually figuring out whether which industry to involve in. So at that time, we had three options. The first is agrotech, second is fintech, and the third one is medtech or health tech actually. So when we trying to figure out which way to go, we've decided that actually when it comes to agrotech, we are not really having green fingers, and having imagined myself to go down to the ground to soil the tanah semua. So it's not really something that I can imagine myself doing. So yeah, that's that. And then when it comes to fintech, at that point of time, we had so many players already in fintech. So it has become somewhat saturated with all the players. So that's why we decided to leave fintech. And then the obvious option at that time was to be in health tech. And it was also partly because of my own personal experience, because my mother actually suffered from cancer. So during those time, I had to accompany. We take turn among siblings, right?
Okay.
So we had to take turn taking my mother for checkup, regular checkup. So while waiting at the hospital, that was when I actually recognized the problem.
Okay.
The waiting time is just so long, as you are well aware as well. And then one day, my mother was referred from hospital Temerloh to hospital KL, right? So we got a call from Hospital Temerloh. And then when the appointment day came, we went to HKL. And then you know what? We had to wait for hours and hours because they couldn't find my mom's medical records.
Oh, okay.
So can you just imagine someone like my mom who was already suffering enough with cancer and all that, and still had to spend a lot of times, a couple more hours, just to wait for them to find her medical records, and then only can go and meet the doctor, right?
Yep.
So from there, that was really kalau orang Jawa kata, that was like the last straw in the that broke the camel's back lah. Yeah. So that was really the deciding moment for me to venture into healthcare actually, because if that can happen to me, I'm sure there's a lot more that have the same experience.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how it started.
Yep. So and then you founded Data 8
Correct. Yes.
So maybe
yes.
if can you tell us a little bit about Data 8 What's the core business? What's the solution
okay.
and
So basically, when we first formed, we did a lot of studies because we wanted to see what is the applicable or the available technology that we can use, right?
yeah.
So back in 2017, that was when actually the blockchain was at its height.
Yep.
And there was a lot of ICOs, there's a lot of white papers being published and all that. So we did our study. And the reason why we came about the decision of having our platform to be built on blockchain was partly because of that. And also we did thorough study in terms of the technology that is most suitable for medical records.
Yeah.
So that's how we decided, hey, why not we build this? And yeah, started from there. Then we decided to build our Sihat lah, the blockchain platform.
Okay.
Yeah, for medical
I
records.
think for the purpose of educating our audience, because blockchain is such a famous word, but sometimes people fail to recognize what's actually a blockchain is. So sometimes people refer to as encryption method. Sometimes refer to blockchain as things that will a tech that will enable integration of multiple platforms. So maybe can you share a little bit what is actually a blockchain and how basically blockchain can be used to address the problem that we have in healthcare system today?
All right. So before we get into that, I just want to share with you, ever since we developed our blockchain platform, we surrender ourselves or surrender our technology to what do you call it, to Cybersecurity Malaysia.
Okay.
Because we wanted for our platform to be validated. Because out there's just a lot of people claiming that their solutions is blockchain ready. You know, they built their solution based on blockchain and all that. But really, when it comes to verification, there's a lot of question marks, right? So that's why we went to see Cybersecurity Malaysia, and Cybersecurity Malaysia has already assessed and validated two things. One is our blockchain network, and the other one is a cryptography algorithm. So this is important for us. The first one is basically we just want to make sure that our solution is really top notch in terms of data security and privacy, and also this can be used to convince the end users that this is really indeed built on blockchain platform. So to put it simply, because I think there's a lot of people confuse blockchain with cryptocurrency.
Yes.
It is not wrong because cryptocurrency, the very basic technology that they are using is basically blockchain. But beyond cryptocurrency, blockchain also have its multiple other use cases, right? So one of them is for medical records actually. So to put it simply, blockchain is all about having the same duplicated files kept in different places. So let's imagine like right now when we mention about database, right? Normally we have that conventional database.
Yeah.
Whereby we only put everything at one place. Yeah. So with blockchain, then we have different nodes where different nodes or different folders to make it easy for people actually keep the same information, the same data. And what important is we need to have a specific key to have access to this particular information. And when you try and hack the system using different key, that is when the blockchain will recognize and also will stop you from infiltrating the system further. Yeah, because the chains of documents has been such built that they will recognize any attempt to break into the system lah. So that's why the added security layer is there to help secure and also make sure that the data is being kept privately. Yeah, so I hope that is simple enough for you to understand.
Yeah, I think
what's
hopefully
yeah.
yeah. I, it's very interesting that basically in 2017 you realized the potential of blockchain for healthcare. So and then you mentioned previously that you have a solution called Sihat. So maybe can you walk us through what Sihat is and
Okay.
what's basically highlight your journey from establishing your startups, your entrepreneurship journey, your technology development journey as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
When we first started, right, the founders of Data 8, the both of us actually are non-technical background.
Yeah.
We haven't.
Yeah, maybe you can tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about your background.
Okay. Well, coming from the corporate sector, of course, the companies that I work with somehow they've got some involvement in technology.
Yeah.
But my job specifically at those days, in those days, were corporate affairs. So even though corporate affairs, but still my personal interest is very much in health, in technology per se. So that's why when we first started Data 8, the first thing that we need to do is to find a willing developers or programmers.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to developing blockchain platform, right? So we need to find a developer that has strong interest enough in blockchain and also in healthcare. And these programmers really need to understand what it takes to help us to build the solution. And we had to spend more than a year actually to look for these programmers. And alhamdulillah, we managed to find two who have been with us since day one actually. So after we spent 1.5 year, and of course at that time we did pay some portion of internal payment kan for them to help us build. But of course, in return for that as well, we offer some equity in the company. Yeah, because as a startup company, we don't have much in terms of payment. So that's why payment plus some equity that is actually help us to really have a committed team of developers to help us in terms of building our Sihat blockchain platform. So that's how we started. Yeah. So we started building it, and we made the first appearance in the market late 2019 when we actually did a demo during the 5G event organized by Crest at that time, and then also Digi at that time as well, before they became Celcom Digi, and a few other companies, including MDAC, if I'm not wrong. So that was when we first demoing our blockchain platform.
Okay.
Yeah. So since then, yeah, we keep on continuing doing all the engagements and then keep on building the solutions. Yeah, on top of our blockchain platform. Yeah.
They are very interesting that a few interesting things that you just mentioned. Number one, I would like to ask whether because it took you 1 year to find a developer and all
More
that.
than 1 year, yes.
More than 1 year.
Yeah.
So do you think that Malaysia we have a talent gap in terms of producing a good developer? And if yes, how we can address that, or if no, basically how what would be your advice to the our developers community in terms of upskilling their programming skills and all that, for
Yeah.
example.
Actually, since we have been dealing with a lot of startup companies as well, and we, discuss among the founders with regards to the talent when it comes to programmers, right?
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. The thing is, programmers in Malaysia, we are not short of talent actually. Yeah, but when it comes to the shortage of talent is when we want to secure talented programmers, who are willing to join startups,
Yeah.
because startups is a very risky business.
Yes.
Right? And a lot of them, sometimes programmers, they much prefer to be in the stable environment, i.e. working full time and all that, rather than helping out or joining startup companies kan. So that is one. And also for programmers, they really need to continuously upgraded themselves in terms of knowledge, because technology moves very fast. And if they are not willing to really equip themselves with the latest technology and whatnot, so that is when we are having difficulty to actually getting the right person to help us to move certain technology punya innovation. Yeah. So when it comes to blockchain pun, sebenarnya we have a lot of those in
Yep.
Malaysia, but most of them actually focusing in cryptocurrency. Yeah. So yeah, because the money is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of doing blockchain development for industry use purposes. Yeah. So in terms of talent, I would say we have lots of talents. It's just that maybe the attractiveness is not so much when it comes to working with startup companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned that during the early stage you gave up your equity and all that in order to hire these
Yep.
developers and all that.
Yeah.
So basically, maybe can you walk us through about your funding journey? How did you initially fund your company in the first place, and did you secure any investment or government grant?
Yeah.
Throughout your journey.
We have been bootstrapping actually since day one. So in addition to bootstrapping, it goes to mean that I have now zero in my bank balance because everything has been already put in as investment for Data 8. And of course, along the way, I think that is a blessing in disguise juga, because back in 2019 or 2020, that was when NTIS was first introduced.
Yep.
And then we saw a very good opportunity of NTIS, because one, we are developing a blockchain platform. So that pretty much aligned with what NTIS is trying to do, right? To help out all the, what do you call it, future techs, so
Yeah.
to speak. So one of them being blockchain. And then the second reason is when it comes to the regulatory aspect of it, because NTIS also handles regulatory kan. So why it matters to us at that point? Because one is technology, and the second one is because of the regulatory issue. Because when it comes to the ownership of the medical records, basically according to KKM guidelines, and it still is, the medical records actually don't belong to us, even though that is our record, right? It belongs to the hospitals and also the clinics that provide us with the services. So when we think about the advancement of technology, the handphones that we have right now, and then the fact that now we manage our own financial affairs just by using banking app, right? So why can't we do the same with medical app? Yeah, why don't they allow us to own our own medical records? So that much part of it needs to have a regulatory intervention. So that was actually the two reasons why we decided to go for NTIS. And of course, the third reason being is the funding part of it lah. So Alhamdulillah, we managed to secure initial investment from MTDC. So we have got that funding for NTIS 2 because we had our solution tested at multiple sites. So NTIS 2. And follow on from there, NTIS only provide us with a certain amount, right? So and sometimes it takes a longer time for us to really claim, because that is based on claimable basis. So in order for us to survive to fill up the gap, we did another round of fundraising actually, and Alhamdulillah as well, we met angel investor who believe in us, and then put in more money than what we asked for actually. But yes, but that helped us a lot to survive. Yeah, so with that initial funding plus NTRS, so we managed to really stretch our what do you call it, runway into many months up until now. Yeah, yeah.
So talking about NTIS, they require you to work with hospitals and all that in order to validate your solution. So
Yeah.
which hospital are you working
Okay.
together with, and how's your experience so far working with this hospital, especially in terms of assisting, facilitating, in terms of validating your technology? Yeah.
We started NTRS with two hospitals actually, HKL and also Hospital Sungai Buloh, and specifically with their emergency department. So you just can imagine these two busy hospitals, and at the height of what do you call it, COVID-19 as well, because we started NTRS I think in early 2020. So that was when the what do you call it, COVID-19 was really at its peak, right?
Yeah.
So when people actually stayed at home, we had to go out to the hospitals to start building our solutions. So that was actually quite an experience for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, COVID-19, yes, we had challenges. But in terms of the opportunities that came out from the COVID-19 is also it is also what do you call it, undeniable for us. Yeah, because what we are building at that time on top of on top of Sihat, our blockchain platform, is also remote consultation. Yeah, so that actually helps the patients at that time to still have access to healthcare, even though they are not allowed to travel and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So that is one of the things that we think COVID-19 helped to really boost in terms of the remote monitoring and also teleconsultation. And the experience of working with these two hospitals are nothing but interesting, because the partners that we have from these two hospitals are very committed, and they see the opportunity and the need, in fact, for them to start capitalizing on digital platform or using technology, to help with their daily operations. So we have a lot of meetings with them, and in fact, all the process that is available in our system now, part of it is coming from them in terms of inputs, in terms of how it should be done, in terms of the process, everything. So it is pretty much aligned with their internal protocol as well. And this is important because whenever a new technology is going to be introduced to any hospital setup, first and foremost, it has to help them to really simplify the whole process rather than are putting more burden on their daily operations, right? So we have to be aware of that. And that is why building it according to their process flow is also very, very important, because at the end of the day, what we want from them is the full acceptance of the technology rather than resistance for them to use it. So all the way, we also together with them, we develop the internal protocol for them to include our solutions in their daily process. So that is how close we are in terms of our collaboration with these two hospitals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned about very interesting points. Basically work together or in terms of co-developing a solution with the end users, with the healthcare practitioners. I think that's something that the healthcare companies in Malaysia should emulate in terms of bekerjasama dengan hospital, especially the end users, to understand their current process,
Correct.
so that basically by the end of the day, we don't have that resistance in terms of adopting the technology.
Yep.
And in terms of, because when you work, you are introducing something very digital, I would say, to the hospital, and we know that our public health system is not that advanced in terms of digitalization. So there must be some sort of challenges in terms of infrastructure readiness and all that. And then just to mention, last year I went to one of the conferences, and it was highlighted that Malaysia was the first to champion smart hospital concept actually in the world with our hospital Selayang.
Right.
But then after that, we sort of didn't continue that momentum in our ecosystem. So what would be your comments in terms of infrastructure readiness in our public health system in adopting digital technologies?
Right. When we mention about infrastructure, right, first and foremost, the internet connectivity has to be made available. Because right now, in addition to our pre-hospital solution, i.e. Simple, the hospital is also using our what I call it, a post-discharge system.
Yep.
So that is where the remote monitoring and also teleconsultation comes in.
Yeah.
And sometimes the doctors are having difficulty to talk to the patient, yeah, during the appointment, because of the quality of the internet connectivity. Yeah, so not because of the solution, but rather because of the internet connectivity. And can you just imagine that this is a hospital which is smack in the middle of KL,
Yes.
right? So what more when we go outside?
Yeah.
So you just can imagine the access to the internet connectivity. That is one. And also, what I would want to really propose here is for our for our healthcare providers to start looking and to start outsourcing into the local market punya solutions rather than looking outside. Because let's be honest, yeah, I think a lot of the systems nowadays are being developed from from outside, yeah.
Yes.
So basically, when it comes to upgrading the system, so that is where we are stuck.
Yeah.
Because when we want to upgrade, then there's going to be a lot more cost involved.
Yes.
And then when we actually entrusted this solutions development and also upgrading the systems to the local developers or to the local companies, then the cost would be much lower, definitely. Yeah. And the turnaround also would be much faster, because we are talking about local companies doing local solutions for our local healthcare providers. So rather than looking for outside solutions, why not start looking to internal into Malaysia, because we have lots and lots of talents actually. So all we need is an opportunity from the healthcare providers to start looking into this. And if the solution is not readily available, then yes, we can help them to also, build something customized to their needs.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is something yang I think still very much need to be done. Yeah.
I think on that note, I would like to basically brief a little bit to the audience about our my STI program as well. My STI program is basically a program that was championed by MOSTI and run by MRANTI and also a few other secretariats in terms of providing that priority for local solution or local technologies developed by local companies to be procured by the government So in that MySTI, basically, if you have your own technology, and if you are local companies and you would like to advertise your own technologies, then you can register to the MySTI portal. So I think it's, as highlighted by Rajifah, it's important for our health system to acknowledge the existence of local solution instead of relying on international or uh, solution from externals, especially the one that would cost significant amount of money, mahal, maintenance lagi. Whereas with our local solution, sometimes basically the customization is there. You can talk to the developers, you can customize the function, so it will give you more freedom. But in terms of, I think there's still a macam skeptical impression from our health system in how to convince, bagaimana nak meyakinkan mereka ni yang basically locally developed solutions can be as good as the solution from outside. What do you think?
Well, in my opinion, right, basically in terms of convincing these decision makers, yeah, sebenarnya what we have in terms of accelerator programs and in terms of sandboxing programs, that is good because we get to test out and we get to validate the system that we are using. And in fact, we are using it, in fact, we are testing it or sandboxing it in the actual environment. So that is good. And from there, that should be enough data collected from the pilot project or collected from the sandboxing to really make a case for the solutions that is being developed together with the healthcare providers, right? So what missing here is the what I call it, the conducive process to enable all the products or all the solutions coming out from the sandbox to be officially adopted by the healthcare providers. So what's missing is I think still pretty much on the end users. The process needs to be sorted out because this is not a regular case of procurement per se.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the solutions, locally produced solutions, co-developed together with the healthcare providers. Thus, it requires a different types of venue or lane for it to be adopted into the whole ecosystem. So what's missing is perhaps this part of the ecosystem that needs to be further ironed out so that we can have a clear pathway right from sandboxing, testing out, piloting, all the way to the commercial adoption. Yeah, so it has to be aligned throughout. So but I think the problem is now with this because when you mentioned about my STI, so we have that 10 what call it, perintis kementerian kan.
Okay, yeah.
So the kementerian also needs to help out the what do you call it, the local innovators, local
Yes.
startups to actually have their solutions to be commercially adopted by the ministries. So yeah, that needs to be done lah. And I think it is not just a short sendiri punya aspiration or
Yeah.
punya request from startups actually, because if we learn from the developed countries, right? In the US, for example, so US have what they call as BRA or I can't remember the exact term for it, but the thing is the government themselves actually call for solutions. They provide you with the problem statements and then they invite all the startup companies to provide with the latest solutions using the latest technology, right? With the assurance that whoever that managed to really meet their requirements, the assurance is yes, they will adopt your solution commercially. So if we can bring something like this to Malaysia, it will really help the local startup ecosystem to further grow instead of having difficulties to really trying to live on daily basis actually. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's a very interesting point. Basically, in terms of our public health system, my takeaway from what you mentioned just now is we need to have that clear pathway from validation, sandboxing,
Yeah.
and if everything is good from that validation, from that sandboxing, there should be a clear pathway from that onwards to for the solution to be eventually procured by the government. Yep. Okay. And how about the private system? What do you think in terms of commercializing innovation with healthcare innovation to the private system here in Malaysia? Is it easier compared to the government side, or more challenges? Or I mean, like for private, some of the technologies yang basically view as a luxury for the public system, sometimes it's a necessity in the private system. Yeah. So what do you think about our private system take up of local technologies?
Well, healthcare providers being healthcare providers, and also business being business, because at the end of the day, what they are looking at is the bottom line, right? So, whenever we pitch or whenever we try to market our products to the private hospitals, for example, then we have to make sure that our products really do add value to the whole operations or to the whole bottom line of that private hospitals. So, in our case, we scan the environment, the private hospitals, and in fact, we met up with a few private hospitals, sharing about our solutions and whatnots. And from there on, what happened was, well, not to say that the solutions are basically there still need to be a lot of convincing lah. Yeah, still needs to be a lot of convincing, and then still needs to be, and we still need to do a lot of customization actually to really suit their internal operations. But the good thing coming from this exercise to us is we also start looking into the peripheral industry, right? So not only focusing in private hospital, but we started looking into the what call it, extension punya industries. So in our case, that is the private ambulance service providers lah.
Okay.
Yeah. So because when it comes to the hospital system that we have, for private specifically, they work quite different as compared to the public sector. Because for the public sector, they do run and manage their own ambulance, right?
Yeah.
But for the private, most of them actually outsource the services to third party. So
Yeah.
in this case, the private ambulance providers lah. So rather than working with the private hospitals themselves, we are now collaborating with private ambulance providers to provide the ambulance services, so that people can start calling for ambulance just using the app. For emergency cases or for patient transfer purposes. Yeah, so that is what we are looking at. So my take on this is, yes, when we talk about the private side, not only that we have private hospitals, but we also have private ambulance providers and the likes of pharmaceutical companies and pharmacies, and also insurance that we also need to think about, because there's also opportunities there actually for us to explore. Yeah.
Okay, I think pretty much we have covered about the technology and also the ecosystem. I would like to basically go into the funding ecosystem here in Malaysia. Basically, everyone knows that healthcare or healthtech is one of the industry with the highest entry barrier. For example, medical devices. In order for you to go to the market easily, you will need around, I think, millions just to get all the testing, clinical validation, the regulatory clearance, and all that. Um, how about the funding ecosystem here in Malaysia? What do you think for the early stage startups? Because currently in our ecosystem, most private investors are more interested towards the advanced stage of startups, Series A, Series B, once they have market traction and all that. Whereas there's a gap in terms of the early stage where most of the startups here in Malaysia relies on government grant. So what do you think of that, and how we can improve the funding ecosystem to have more startups to cross that gap, basically, in order for them to secure their first uh,
For healthcare kan, actually the gestation period tu is longer compared to other industries. Because we are talking about patient safety.
yes.
Regardless of what product you are developing, either it's device, either it's digital solution. So at the end of the day, we have to make sure that the patient safety first.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a lot of testing, validation, and use cases needs to be tested out. So what missing here is the appreciation and also the understanding that healthcare takes a different commitment from the investor. Because when you invest in startup that is in healthcare, we can't really expect for them to generate revenue next year because there's a lot of test bedding needs to be done, and it takes time for validation, and as you mentioned earlier, to get even the certificate from the MDA, for example, right? So VCs and early investors need to understand this and needs to provide sufficient room for health tech startups to really develop their system into maturity before it can even go for commercialization. So the pre-com stage is where a lot of risk needs to be absorbed collaboratively between the startup founders and also the VCs and angels. Yeah. So I think in Malaysia, what we need is more of these VCs to put importance in healthcare, even though there are already VCs investing in healthcare. But as you mentioned rightly, it's more towards after the solutions being commercialized, right? After the risk is much safer for them to absorb. Now, what missing here is this period. So what I'm trying to say here is this: even for the funding punya purposes pun, perhaps we need to do another assessment for these healthcare related punya products, because healthcare related products might require a different support in terms of the initial stage, and this support might be different from the ones in, let's say for example, manufacturing in other industries, yeah, because the turnaround could be much faster as compared to healthcare. So um, again, my appeal, if we want to see a lot more of these innovations coming up from our local startup companies, then yes, assistance in terms of not only funding, of course, but the expertise, in terms of expertise as well. Yeah. And in terms of IP, that is another issue that is very important to highlight. So all these things need to be sorted out, and we need to have a bigger support in order to make sure that we have a chance to really develop our product to TRL 8 at the very least. Yeah, before we can go to commercialization. So yeah, it takes a village actually to help local startups, specifically if they are in health tech.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's just that I would like, at least from these tidbits today, we want to highlight to the funders, to the investors out there, that when you want to invest in health tech companies, you need to understand, or you need to appreciate that the journey will be slightly different compared to the, for example, agri-related technology. Fintech is another area that perhaps heavily regulated, but healthcare is definitely, in my opinion, on another level. Yeah, so yeah, I think we are close to the closing of these tidbits today. Just a few concluding questions. Number one, what do you see a government agency like MRANTI should facilitate or should champion in terms of facilitating startups like yours in commercializing a solution in Malaysia?
The way I see it, basically our ecosystem right now, because when we talk about technology development, right, we have got TRL1 all the way to TRL9. And sekarang ni the funnel from TRL1 all the way up to at least TRL7 is very, very clear. And in fact, I think when it comes to 8 and 9, that is where the problems start to occur.
Yes.
So that is where the negotiation with the end users, and then the startup companies need to start looking for commercialization opportunities out there. So what MRANTI has done is to cover through your NTIS, through your health tech hub, for example. So you have done actually good work in making sure that all the startup companies have the chance to really develop their solutions right from at the very least TRL4 all the way to at least 8. Kan? But what I see and I commend MRANTI very much actually is the initiative that you do. Go beyond your what call it your TOR, I would say, because we engage a lot with you and your team, right? And we see the efforts that you put in terms of helping out companies like us. So that is very, very much appreciated. But what we need to see here is then the acceptance from the other side of the ecosystem, i.e. the end users, the 10 Kementerian Perintis that is also involved in this My STI punya journey, right? So that a lot more engagements needs to be done, and acceptance needs to be higher. Yeah, when it comes to these solutions coming out from your funnel.
Yeah, I think on that note, there's something I would like to share my opinion in terms of TRL. So when people say TRL, a value of death, for example, people always say that the value of death is between 4 to 6 or 7. But I think for healthcare, specifically for healthtech, actually the value of death is slightly more advanced than that. It's around 7 to 8. This is where the highest investment, highest injection of capital is needed to get the regulatory clearance, highest, I would say, highest evidence need to be generated for the solution and all that. So basically, what I would like to educate the audience is that when we talk about healthtech, you cannot compare to other verticals, especially the likes of more straightforward. I don't want to say straightforward because people will say that I undermine other fields, but it's more less regulated industries. So yeah, so at the end users, the funders, every aspect of the ecosystem need to appreciate and need to understand that healthtech is entirely on different level. So basically, in designing a program, for example, please, I would like to educate also the funders and also agencies. When you design your grant, sometimes you put the cap of 1 million for healthtech, for agritech, for other vertical as well. But sometimes actually you need to design in a way that healthtech should have higher cap actually, because the journey is slightly different. So yeah, so
Thank you for highlighting that.
yeah, I would like to share my opinion on that as well. So basically, okay, last I mean like throughout my journey in the health ecosystem, I don't see much woman entrepreneur in, and you together with co-founder. So for the audience, basically the title was founded by Rajifah and also her co-founder. I know both are women, so I would like to basically ask you, what did you face any specific challenges as a woman entrepreneur in this field? And what would be your advice to the ecosystem in terms of um, maneuvering your journey to commercialize your health tech solution?
Personally, right, I've never seen gender as an issue,
Okay.
right? Well, this has been my practice right from my corporate punya time. So to me, when you're good, you're good, right? So with that kind of mindset, or with that kind of perception, I ventured into startup, knowing fully well there might be challenges, but these challenges not because I'm a woman, but perhaps because of the funding's not enough, the tech is not solid enough, that kind of things, right? So I think it's very, very important for the ladies out there to realize that we should never take our gender as an excuse to not be on par as other people, right? Because gender is just gender. What we need to be focusing on is how good is our solutions are and how good they are being accepted out there. But having said that, I do realize that, especially in our ecosystem, uh, providing opportunities for women entrepreneurs, for example, are there. So yes, given that opportunities, then why not? Because we do have special funding for women. We do have, some programs which is tailor-made specifically for women. So yes, why not we also take advantage of that? Because since the ecosystem already provided us with those assistance, yeah. Because just want to what do you call it, give you an example. Last Friday we attended this Empower Her program organized by one of the VCs, and the reason why we attended Empower Her, even though I said earlier that really gender is not really important to me, because we see that VCs have a specific funding for women. Yeah, and why not take that as an opportunity for us to really explore the VC funding? Yeah, so yeah, that's my take on the whole thing.
And what would be your advice to the startup companies?
My advice, don't start your own startups unless you are crazy enough, and unless you are willing to actually okay with the possibility of selling off your house, selling off your car, and then to dry up your personal savings, because that is what I've done in order to make sure that the company survive. So yeah, unless you are crazy enough, and unless your calling and unless your purpose is clear enough, then you better just do whatever it is that you're doing right now, and instead of jumping into a startup ecosystem. Because the challenge is different. But what I can say is, even though the challenges is there, but it's very, very fulfilling actually. It's very, very satisfying in terms of, you get to see how your idea starts to form, and how your ideas start to be accepted by the ecosystem, and especially by the end user. Because we are proud to share here. One of the solutions that we developed is called Simple, stands for Simplified Medical Platform for Emergency, right? Now, knowing the fact that every day we manage 200 emergency cases in the Klang Valley. So that gives us, wow,
Sense of
a satisfaction.
profession.
Or with the fact that our end users, the hospitals, are really using it, and really using it to manage their daily operations, and in this case the emergency cases, which is actually very, very important in terms of saving lives.
Yep.
So just knowing that make us really want to push this further, and really want to make it happen. And I must say that we are barely starting, actually just about scratching the surface. And so hopefully after this we will do a lot more. Yeah, and have a lot more impact to the society at large, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully all the best for you as well. Think like on that note, basically, just also would like to highlight to our audience, startup is not an easy journey. I myself haven't been on that journey, but I have a friend. So he told me that he wanted to live his life of working 9 to 5, but now he's working 12 to 12. So that's kind of commitment is needed for you to run your startup. As Rajifah mentioned, it's not easy, but towards the end, once you see your solution is starting to making an impact, I think it sort of brings that sense of satisfaction, rewarding, and all that. So okay, on that note, basically we would like to thank our uh, panel today, Rajifah Ramli from TIDBITS Berhad. Stay tuned and we'll meet you again soon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye bye.